Our reading today is called In Between by Kate Walker. In between, liminal, that space where we wait. Between moments, events, results, action, no action. To stand on the threshold waiting for something to end and something new to arrive. A pause in the rumble of time. Awareness claims us, alert. A shadow of something different. In between invitation and acceptance. In between symptom and diagnosis. In between send and receipt of inquiry and question. In between love given and love received. Liminality, a letting go, entering into confusion, ambiguity, and disorientation. A ritual begun, pause, look back at once was, look forward into what becomes. Identity sheds a layer, reaches into something uncomfortable to wear, perhaps. In between, lighting of the match and the kindling of oil of light of life. In between, choosing of text and the reading of words. In between, voices and notes carried through the air into ears to hear. In between, creation thrusts ever forward. Social hierarchies may disassemble, structures may fall, communities may revolt or attempt trust. Tradition may falter, or creativity crashes forward. Leaders may step down or take charge. The people may choose or refuse. In between, storm predicted, but the horizon beacons. In between, theology of process reminds us, step back. In between, where minutiae and galaxies intermingle with microbes, with mysteries. In between, liminal, that space where we wait, look, listen, feel, and breathe.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Delighted to see all of you. Thank you for coming. This is launching our summer series, and the theme is Building a New Way. Thanks to Cheryl Guy and Mary Oken for inviting me to be part of the project. Thanks to Marilyn Garst for playing some of Georgia O'Keeffe's favorite composers. My title is Fine and or Applied, the meaning of which many of you probably have guessed. When I was a teenager, or when I was young and stupid, as we all were once, my dream was to become the next generation Georgia O'Keeffe. Well, today, 70 years later, after my 18th birthday, you do the math, I'm a cartoonist. I'm not the next generation Georgia O'Keeffe. So what happened? And that's today's story, Building a New Way. Once upon a time, armed with modest skills and encouragement from my two high school teachers, Vernice Pruitt and Cecil North, I applied to the University of Michigan School of Art and Design as a fine arts major. Then as now, The great divide between fine and applied art existed. In the 1960s, naive art majors wanted to be either studio or commercial artists. Then as now, the great split between fine and applied carried echoes of class and status. Few of us then were sophisticated enough to know that. A little digression. The split between fine and applied art, or today's closely related fine art and craft debate, is a particularly Western distinction. It arose during the Renaissance. I know that now. I did not know that then. Without questioning assumptions, I bought into the dream of becoming a real artist. I looked down on my classmates who wanted to be illustrators, designers, or, God forbid, cartoonists. In the 1960s, O'Keeffe was still painting and still making news. Decades earlier, she left New York and moved to New Mexico. In the art world, she had already been anointed the patron saint of modernism, the semi-abstract art movement that swept away realism and impressionism. Equally important, O'Keeffe had become a star in the burgeoning feminist movement. Her ascent began back in the 1920s when she was known as the New American Woman Artist. Her paramour, the famous photographer and avant-garde art gallery owner, Alfred Stieglitz, deliberately, consciously, patiently chose her to be the first woman to break the glass ceiling in the highly competitive, male-dominated New York art scene. By promoting O'Keeffe's early abstract experiments and her magnificent flower paintings, Stieglitz catapulted her to celebrity status. In 1924, he mounted and publicized a dual exhibit of her paintings and his photographs of her in the nude, against her wishes. The press and the public clamored for more. The two became celebrities. They eventually married and then separated when she moved to New Mexico, far more famous than he at that time. I knew none of that when I was in college. I was merely swept away by her art. I simply wanted to paint like her and be her in the next generation. As I said, young and stupid, or certainly young and naive. In art school, I mimicked her style, as did many of my fellow students, male and female. O'Keeffe's style is easy to imitate if any of you are painters. And here's the formula. Take a flower, any flower, take a bone, or a mountain, or a landscape, and simplify the contours, enlarge it. Use oil paint, or if you must, acrylic. That's all post-O'Keeffe. Oil lends itself better to gradations and smooth surfaces. Avoid texture of any kind. You want a flat surface and the illusion of transformed reality. Obvious as it was, better to imitate O'Keeffe in the 60s when I was an art student than Jackson Pollock. Time passed. I taught art in California public schools. I got married. I went to graduate school in art history, where I finally began to put O'Keeffe in the larger context of Western art. I also learned more about the fine and applied art chasm that loomed over American art majors in the 60s. More importantly, I learned how that tension surfaced in the Renaissance, that great cultural upheaval of the 15th and 16th centuries. Inexplicably, I hung on to my teenage fantasy. When I taught college art history, I painted when I had time in my garage. I even had a faculty show, proudly exhibiting my O'Keeffe-inspired landscapes. Very embarrassing to even admit that now. When we moved west to Pocatello, Idaho, my husband David taught at the State University, and I became a full-time mother. I set up my studio in our garage again, and I painted when our son Sammy napped. Then one afternoon in that garage in Pocatello, Idaho, it's very important that we fixate on Pocatello, Idaho, I had a Damascus experience. You all know the Bible story of the road to Damascus. Saul was a zealot persecuting Christians when he underwent a sudden conversion and became Paul, as in St. Paul. Struck blind by a heavenly light and a voice from heaven, he fell from his horse and remained comatose for 3 days. When he revived, he saw the light of Christianity. Paul's conversion may have taken 3 days. My awakening took less than an hour. 3 things dawned on me. 1, Georgia O'Keeffe worked alone in her studio steadily her whole life. That solitary life was not my cup of tea. 2, Georgia O'Keeffe had a business manager, Alfred Stieglitz, a wealthy man who owned a popular Manhattan gallery and promoted her big time. In contrast, I married a college professor, a wonderful but ordinary man, and we lived in Pocatello, Idaho, which didn't even have an art gallery. 3, Georgia O'Keeffe chose not to be a mother. I will tell you that story if you come to the talk back, not now. I had a son, I was a mother, and I painted during his nap time. So what was I thinking? Pocatello, New York, Damascus? Well, building a new way, at last, I am linking my so-called conversion to where we are now here at UUFD. My new path involved plunging into Pocatello's cultural community, and yes, it has one. And like Durango, another small western town, a surprising active cultural life. Then I sang in 2 choirs, I acted in some plays, I took college classes, I volunteered to design, illustrate, and advertise community arts programs. I discovered I loved commercial art projects. 2 years later, we moved to Los Angeles, and one day David casually said, "Why don't you just consider taking a commercial art class? You clearly enjoy your projects. Maybe you just need to update your skills. Think about it, just consider it." I thought about it, and I found an advertising design class at a local college. I updated my technical skills in illustration, photography, typography, and design. I started freelancing, first in LA, then in Albany, New York, and then in Rochester, New York, where at age 50, I left the academic world, not pertinent to this talk, for a full-time job in journalism, writing and illustrating for a newspaper. In 1994, we moved to Durango, primarily for David's health, and I took my portfolio to the Herald. Morley Ballantyne hired me, first to write, and then she happened to notice my illustrations. She saw the humor and casually asked if I had ever thought about political cartooning. "Arthur and I," she said, "have always wanted a political cartoonist to comment on small-town issues. Not an easy task in a small town. Would you consider it? Yes, I said. At age 57, I started a new late life career. As our theme suggests, I built a new bridge to the future. 30 years later, now, I'm still at it, and an exhibit of my political cartoons, which Cheryl very graciously advertised for me, as we are not supposed to do that from the pulpit. My applied art is on display in town through July. In conclusion, at 35 in Pocatello, Idaho, I reset my life. I crossed over to the dark side of applied art and let go of my youthful dream of becoming the next generation Georgia O'Keeffe. Instead, I'm a political cartoonist who draws for the Durango Herald. I'll correct you if you just say the Durango Herald. I traded in my hero worship for Georgia O'Keeffe for the great political cartoonists of our time, Paul Conrad, Ann Telness, and Steve Sack of the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, who I met and interviewed and wrote an article about for the Durango Herald, and the late Pat Oliphant, who died just last week in Santa Fe at age 90. Please come back for the chat and tell us about your youthful dreams and your adult realities. Bring your comments and your questions. Share your road to Damascus. That's what Building a New Way is all about. Thank you.